Malik tasted metal and fear at the exact second the patrol cruiser's spotlight burned the night wide open. A hard white glare washing over the broken sedan, his mother's trembling hands on the steering wheel, and his own small chest rising too fast as if the light could pull the breath out of him and pin it to the air like a moth. The road was a two-lane ribbon of cracked tar slicing through damp Georgia pines, the air thick with the smell of hot oil and rain-damp earth. The sedan's hood cocked open like a wounded jaw. They had coasted to the shoulder when the engine coughed and died, and for a few dark minutes the world was only churring insects, a distant freight horn, and the aching sound of his mother whispering a prayer that collapsed before it could reach the sky. Then the cruiser rolled up behind them and the light arrived like Judgment Day. Officer Daniels stepped out with the heavy shuffle of someone who knows the ground belongs to him, palm on his belt, thumb flicking at the retention strap with lazy confidence. He was a big man, soft in the middle, with the face of someone who smirked for a living, and the moment his boots crunched grit, he gave Malik that long, sloppy look that measured everything from his hairline to his sneakers and found something funny. In the evening, he called, and the word sounded like he was tasting it, like he could spit it if it turned sour. Whose vehicle, he asked without asking, and Malik's mother said, "It's ours, sir. We have the registration and we just need a tow," and Daniels leaned forward to the window and sniffed. Not at the car, but at the space where their dignity lived, and he smiled like the smell amused him. Malik stood because he could not sit and be small while a stranger bent his body into the car like that, and his mother touched his wrist as if to tie him down with her fingertips, but he stepped into the light anyway, blinking hard because his eyes had never learned to accept being burned. He said, "Sir, we didn't do anything wrong," and the "sir" was a shield he had been taught to carry like a lunchbox, compact and not very useful against bullets or laughter. Daniels glanced at him with a slow swivel, the light cutting a halo around Malik's head and flattening his features into a shadow with teeth. "That's so, kid," he said, and the kid landed like a shove. And he asked where Dad was, said it like a dare. Like a joke, he expected Malik to understand and repeat back to him. Malik swallowed because his mouth was dry and the metal taste would not leave. And he said calmly what he always said when people asked, "My dad's in Special Forces, he's on training and he's coming." And the night caught the words and tossed them back like stones, and for a second the air got still. Then Daniels laughed. Not a big gut-busting laugh, just a tight bark that said he had seen this movie, had heard this line from boys with quick tongues and no fathers, and he pitched his voice to travel across the hood and into the driver's seat, so Malik's mother would hear every syllable. "Special Forces, huh?" he said, and clucked his tongue and leaned closer to the faded paint of the sedan as if he were reading its history in the scratches. "You mean PlayStation, right, soldier boy? You mean he's special with a joystick?" Malik felt something inside him fold and refold, a paper shield becoming a knife, and before his mouth could move, his mother said softly, "Sir, please." And that please was made of old rent notices, and the hollowed-out ache of working twice as hard for half as much, and it barely reached Daniels at all. He straightened and told them to step out, told them to keep their hands where he could see them, and his tone had changed to that clipped rhythm cops use when they want to sound professional, while they are enjoying themselves. Malik stepped into the gravel, shoes sliding just a little, the night sweat on his neck cooling too fast under the white blaze of the spotlight, and he could feel the insect buzz of humiliation collecting in his ears. He offered their registration with a hand that did not shake, because his father had taught him how not to shake, how to press his thumb into the soft part of his palm and think about breathing like a soldier breathes when the helicopter skids kiss dust, and Daniels took the paper and read it like it was fiction. Then he asked for more, asked for proof of ownership, asked whether any weapons were in the vehicle, asked where they were going and why at this hour, asked whether there were open containers or controlled substances, asked whether that neat little story about Special Forces was supposed to make him feel impressed or just patient. And there was a rhythm to it like drumming on ribs. Malik tried to keep his gaze level, not too high, not dropping to the ground, because his father had said never look down unless you're finding your footing, and the only footing right now was the shaking edge of his own anger. A truck passed, wind slapping, and then the world was quiet again except for the idling cruiser and Daniel's mechanical breath. He told Malik to turn around and interlace his fingers on his head, a ridiculous command for a kid with a scraped elbow and a soccer medal hidden in a shoebox at home, and Malik did it anyway because his mother's eyes had gone glossy and distant, the way they did when she counted the cost of defiance. Daniels moved behind him, close enough that Malik could smell coffee gone bitter and mint trying to cover something older. And he chuckled again, low as if to himself, and said, "Tell you what, soldier boy, when your daddy finishes saving the world, maybe he can show me that ID of his. Maybe he can teach me to salute." Malik heard himself say, "You shouldn't have said that." And his voice surprised him because it wasn't loud. It wasn't a shout. It was something flat and certain like a door locking. Daniels paused behind him and then laughed once more, a final tap of the baton on an empty drum. The air changed, a subtle shiver that rose from the pines like a warning. It began as a tremor beneath the gravel, a low distant thrumming that seemed to reach up through Malik's shoes and into his bones, and his head turned before he meant it to, seeking the source. The spotlight widened in a pale halo, catching motes, and over the tree line a shape shouldered the night aside. A black helicopter sliding in without insignia or headlights, its rotors whispering the language of storms. The cruiser's radio crackled with a burst of coded chatter that wasn't county frequency. A clipped call sign that froze the smirk on Daniel's lips mid-curve. Malik didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Because somewhere in that dark curve of sky and steel, he heard his father's heartbeat knocking on the door of the world. The helicopter's rotors carved the night into ribbons of sound and shadow, scattering pine needles across the asphalt as it descended. Officer Daniels stumbled back, his hand instinctively hovering near his holster, eyes wide, unsure if this was backup or something far beyond his pay grade. Malik didn't move. The light from the chopper turned his small frame into a silhouette of still defiance, the kind of calm that only comes from knowing someone powerful is coming for you. His mother, Lila, covered her mouth, whispering a prayer that trembled more from disbelief than fear. The helicopter hovered 30 feet above before settling behind the patrol cruiser, its black blades slowing into silence. The sound of boots hitting the gravel cut through the ringing in everyone's ears. A man stepped out, tall, deliberate, his face hidden by the faint reflection of the rotating lights. His presence didn't shout authority. It radiated it, quiet and certain like gravity itself. He walked toward them, each footstep timed and steady, the kind of pace that made time adjust to him rather than the other way around. Malik's lips parted, a flicker of relief crossing his young face. "Dad," he whispered, and the word felt like the first breath after drowning. Marcus King didn't glance at the helicopter or the soldiers fanning out behind it. His eyes locked on Malik first, scanning him for harm, then moved to Lila. She nodded once, silently telling him they were fine. For now. Only then did Marcus shift his attention to Officer Daniels. The cop's body stiffened, chest puffing with a brittle kind of bravado that only survives when it's not tested yet. "Evening," Marcus said, voice calm but weighted with that precise tone soldiers use when words are instructions. Daniels cleared his throat. "You can't just drop in here like—" Marcus raised a hand and the gesture cut through the air like a command wave. "Not threatening, just final. I'm speaking to my family," Marcus said evenly, then knelt to Malik's level. "You all right, son?" Malik nodded, his voice catching. "He said you weren't real." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he smiled for his son's sake. "I'm real enough." Lila exhaled, stepping closer, brushing gravel dust off Marcus's sleeve. "They thought we stole the car," she murmured. Marcus's gaze flicked to the officer, not angry, not even cold. Just assessing. Measuring. Daniels felt it, that invisible weight pressing into the space between them, the kind of scrutiny that no badge could deflect. "Routine check," Daniels said too quickly, trying to fill the silence. "Guy said he's Special Forces." Before he could finish, a faint chirp came from Marcus's wrist communicator. A voice crackled through, coded, clipped, unmistakably military. "Commander King, your location was flagged. Standing by for clearance." Daniels froze. "Commander." The title rang in the humid air like a gavel strike. Marcus pressed the communicator, replying without breaking eye contact. "Stand down. Family situation. Secure perimeter, then hold position." From the tree line, shadows moved. Men in matte black gear, no insignia, weapons slung low but disciplined. Not local cops. Not even a regular army. Daniel's throat went dry. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, though his voice had already lost its shape. "This is me picking up my family," Marcus said, rising to his full height. The air around him seemed to expand, reclaiming the space that fear had stolen. "Now, officer, I believe you owe my son an apology." Daniels's lips parted, but the words refused to come. He looked from Marcus to the soldiers, then back to Malik, the boy standing quietly beside his father, eyes filled not with vengeance, but something heavier. Expectation. "I didn't mean," Daniels began, but Marcus cut in, his tone low and even. "You meant every word. That's the problem." The silence that followed wasn't just awkwardness, it was surgical. Daniel's hand trembled slightly, hovering near his belt, but Marcus didn't move. His restraint was sharper than any weapon. Finally, Daniels muttered, "Didn't know who you were." Marcus stepped closer, the gravel crunching softly beneath his boots. "That's just it. You shouldn't have to know." For a long moment, the two men stood locked in a fragile truce of eye contact, one man's authority collapsing under the weight of another's composure. Then Marcus turned back to his family. "Let's go home." But as he opened the car door, the first twist slipped quietly into motion. The military SUV that had been idling behind the helicopter blinked its headlights twice. A silent code. Marcus hesitated, glanced toward it, and the soldier in the driver's seat gave a subtle hand signal. Urgent. Marcus's expression barely shifted, but Malik noticed. Something was wrong. Marcus turned back to Lila. "Stay with Malik. I'll be a minute." He walked toward the SUV, shoulders straight, the way a man does when he's already carrying too many secrets. Daniels watched him go, uneasy, curiosity crawling up his spine. The helicopter hadn't left. Its pilot was waiting. Inside the SUV, a younger officer leaned out and whispered fast. "Sir, the recon op wasn't an accident. The names we found. One of them's from your last team. They're here in town." Marcus's face went still. A flicker of something dark crossed his eyes. Memory, pain, maybe guilt. "You're sure?" he asked. The soldier nodded. "Positive, sir. And he's not alone." Outside, Malik tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom," he said softly. Dad's face looked different. Lila swallowed hard, trying to sound calm. "Your father has seen a lot of things, baby. Some of them follow him home." When Marcus returned, his face was composed again, but his silence carried an edge. "Everything all right?" Lila asked. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that lies only to protect. "Just some old business," he said, opening the passenger door. As the family drove off into the night, the road swallowed the sound of their tires, leaving Officer Daniels alone with the echo of rotor blades and a growing chill in his gut. He didn't know it yet, but the man he had mocked was about to drag him, and the entire town, into a story that began long before tonight, and was far from over. The following evening, rain threaded down from a swollen gray sky, tapping on the windows of the King household like cautious fingers. The small home sat on the edge of a pinewood stretch, half hidden from the road, quiet, ordinary, and yet charged with a tension that seemed to hum beneath every wall. Malik lay awake in his room, watching the blurred shadows of raindrops slide down the glass. His father hadn't spoken much since the incident with the officer, and his mother's smiles had grown thinner, like paper stretched too tight. Something about the night before had cracked open a part of their lives Malik wasn't supposed to see, and he could feel it breathing just beyond the silence. Downstairs, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, his uniform jacket draped over the chair beside him, a cup of untouched coffee cooling near his elbow. The room was lit only by the low amber hum of the hanging lamp. Across from him, Lila rubbed her hands together slowly, her wedding ring catching the light. "You saw something out there, didn't you?" she said softly. Marcus didn't look up. "Just someone I used to know," he replied. The words were calm, but the pause afterward was heavy enough to bend the air between them. "Used to know?" she pressed. "Or thought you left behind?" Marcus finally lifted his eyes, and there was something in them. Not fear exactly, but memory sharpened to a knife's edge. "When you work in the dark long enough," he said, "you start to believe the dark stays where you left it. But it doesn't. It follows." Upstairs, Malik strained to hear their voices, catching only fragments. Team, betrayal, classified. Words that didn't belong in a kitchen. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine his father as he once did. Heroic, untouchable, saving people in far-off places. But now even that picture carried shadows. A sudden knock at the door made all three of them jump. The clock on the wall read 9:47. Marcus's posture changed instantly, Shoulders straightening, eyes narrowing, the soldier waking up beneath the father. "Stay here," he told Lila, already moving for the entryway. The knock came again, firmer this time. Marcus opened the door slowly, just enough to see the man standing on the porch, soaked through from the rain, hands visible, badge gleaming in the porch light. "Officer Daniels." Marcus didn't speak at first. Daniels gave a tight nod, his voice oddly measured. "Mr. King, I came to apologize." Marcus studied him like a bomb he wasn't sure was disarmed. "You picked a strange time for it," he said. Daniels shifted his weight, rain dripping from his cap. "I've been doing some reading," he said quietly. "About Marcus King, Special Operations Group, Afghanistan 2014. Classified missions, missing team members, one survivor." "That you?" Marcus's face didn't change, but his eyes flickered, just once. "Those records are sealed," he said flatly. Daniels nodded. "Yeah, that's what makes it interesting." The air between them filled with the low rumble of distant thunder. Daniels hesitated before speaking again. "One of those names?" "One of your men, Sergeant Tolan. He was listed as KIA, but a buddy of mine in Intel says that's not true." "Says Tolan went rogue. Disappeared. There's chatter he's back, right here in this county." Lila's hand tightened on the doorframe behind Marcus. He turned his head slightly, his voice almost a whisper. "You need to leave, officer." Daniels didn't. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, I screwed up last night. But something's happening out there, and you know it. The people I called can't trace half the signals that came off that helicopter. Whoever you work for, they're spooked. And if that man Tolan's here..." The sound cut him off. A faint metallic click from somewhere across the road. Marcus's body reacted before thought caught up. He shoved Daniels sideways just as the front window exploded inward, shards flying. A suppressed shot, clean and professional. Lila screamed, dropping to the floor. Malik bolted from his room, his heart slamming against his ribs. Marcus crouched by the wall, eyes scanning, brain already calculating angles and distance. Another shot, this one splintering the doorframe. "Get down!" he barked. Daniels drew his weapon, eyes wide with shock. "Who the hell—" "He's here!" Marcus snapped. Tolan. The next few seconds unfolded with military precision. Marcus rolled across the floor, grabbed his sidearm from the duffel near the couch and signaled Lila and Malik toward the hallway. Safe room now. The rain outside intensified, the sound merging with the rush of adrenaline. Daniels peeked through the shattered window but saw only darkness and trees swaying in the wind. Marcus fired twice, controlled bursts, at the tree line. Silence followed. Only the rain remained, hissing against the gravel. Slowly, Marcus exhaled, lowering the weapon. "He's testing us," he muttered. "Seeing if I'm still sharp." Daniels wiped the blood from a shallow cut on his cheek, still trying to piece together what he had walked into. "Why you?" he asked quietly. "Why now?" Marcus stared into the night as if the darkness might answer. "Because he knows I carry the only thing that can end him. Proof." Daniels frowned. "Proof of what?" Marcus looked at him then, eyes cold, haunted. "Of what our country did when it decided some men were expendable." He stepped toward the door, reloading his weapon with slow, deliberate care. "Tolan didn't just go rogue. He was betrayed, and he blames me for surviving." Behind him, Malik's small voice broke the silence from the hallway. "Dad, are we in danger?" Marcus turned, his features softening for just a moment. "Not while I'm breathing," he said. But outside, beyond the dripping pines, a single figure watched through a scope. Unseen, patient, smiling faintly. The rain rolled down his gloved hand as he whispered into a comm. "He knows. Begin phase 2. Inside the house, Marcus didn't hear it, but somewhere deep in his chest he felt the old ghosts stir. The storm had moved inland, leaving behind a dripping silence that felt heavier than rain. The broken glass on the King family's living room floor shimmered faintly under the dim light, each shard like a tiny mirror reflecting the night's violence. The house smelled of wet earth and gunpowder. Marcus stood near the shattered window, motionless, scanning the tree line through the shifting mist. His mind was running through military calculus, wind direction, sight lines, terrain cover. But beneath all that, something deeper was churning. He wasn't just being hunted. He was being called out. Lila sat on the couch with Malik, wrapping his trembling hands in hers, whispering half-formed reassurances. Officer Daniels leaned against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. The cut on his face had stopped bleeding, but his pride still stung sharper. He had come here thinking he was chasing redemption, maybe even heroism. Now he was caught in a shadow war he didn't understand. Marcus finally turned from the window. "We can't stay here. Whoever's out there won't stop." Daniel straightened. "You said his name was Tolan. Why would he come after you?" "You said he went rogue." Marcus gave him a long, unreadable look. "Because I was the one ordered to end him and then I didn't." Lila's breath caught. "You told me he died." Marcus's voice was low, almost a growl. "He was supposed to die. My team was sent to clean up an op gone wrong. A village raid in Kandahar. A misfire that wiped out civilians." Tolan snapped. "He blamed command and said we were covering up murder. He wanted to go public. I was ordered to silence him before he could leak it." Malik's eyes widened. "You killed your friend?" Marcus shook his head. "I couldn't, I let him go. I thought he'd disappear, start over somewhere. But the government wrote him off as dead anyway. And now," his gaze drifted toward the dark woods, "he's come back to finish what I couldn't." A low hum vibrated through the house, distant at first, then growing louder. Lila tensed. "That sound again," she whispered. Marcus's jaw clenched. "Drones," he said. "He's marking the perimeter." Daniel's voice cracked. "Jesus, what's he want?" Marcus picked up his rifle, checked the chamber. "Revenge. And evidence. He's got files and recordings from that mission, enough to burn every name attached to it. He wants the truth to come out, but he doesn't care how many bodies he stacks to do it." A sudden static burst from the police radio on Daniel's belt interrupted them. The voice on the other end was faint, warped by interference. "Unit 4, are you there?" Daniels grabbed it. "This is Daniels. I need backup at..." The voice cut out. A hiss of feedback followed, then another voice, low and chillingly calm. "Backup's not coming, officer. You're all alone." Daniels dropped the radio like it was burning. Lila gasped, covering Malik's ears. Marcus didn't move. He recognized the voice. Tolan. The next moment shattered the fragile stillness. The back door blew inward with a deafening crash. Smoke rolled through the hallway. Marcus reacted instantly, pulling Malik and Lila down, covering them with his body. Daniels fired blindly toward the sound. A figure moved in the haze, quick, silent, professional. The muzzle flash lit a masked face for just an instant before Marcus's return shot forced it back into the dark. "Move," Marcus shouted, hauling Malik toward the basement door. "Safe room, go." They scrambled down the narrow stairs as another burst of gunfire tore through the kitchen walls. The reinforced steel door sealed behind them, plunging them into near darkness except for the faint glow of emergency lights. Malik was crying quietly, but Marcus placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You're safe," he said, though even he didn't believe it. Upstairs, Daniels had taken cover behind the overturned dining table, heart hammering. He could hear footsteps circling outside the house, one set, deliberate. Then silence. He dared a look toward the hall and then froze. A small red laser dot danced across his chest. "Drop the gun. Cop," came a voice from somewhere beyond the smoke. Deep. Controlled. "This isn't your fight." Daniels hesitated, pulse pounding in his ears. "Who are you?" he called out. The voice laughed softly. "You already know. The one your new friend betrayed?" Marcus's radio crackled below ground, the same voice bleeding through static. "Marcus, you can't hide from what you did. I gave you mercy once. I'm not giving it twice." Lila looked at her husband, fear flashing in her eyes.
"He's found us." Marcus turned toward the reinforced door, jaw tightening.
"Not yet," he said, pressing a hidden panel on the wall. The sound of machinery hummed to life, metallic, mechanical, old but reliable. "That leads to the storm tunnel," he explained. "We'll exit by the creek." Malik clung to his arm. "Dad, what if he catches us?" Marcus looked down, his expression softening for just a heartbeat. "Then I finish what I should have done years ago." Above them, another explosion shook the floorboards. Dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel screamed something, a sound of both defiance and fear, followed by 2 rapid gunshots, then silence. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "He's dead," he murmured. Lila's breath broke into sobs. "We can't keep running." Marcus looked toward the exit tunnel, his face hardening again. "We're not running," he said quietly. "We're going hunting." He pulled open the steel hatch, revealing a narrow shaft leading into blackness. Rainwater trickled down its walls. Malik stared into it, shivering. "Dad, it's dark." Marcus turned back toward the sound of creaking floorboards above them. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. He met his son's eyes, voice steady and sharp. "That's why we move now." As the family descended into the tunnel, the basement door exploded behind them, splintering inward. Through the smoke and falling debris, a tall figure stepped into the room, body armored, face hidden behind a cracked visor. He paused, scanning the empty space, then crouched to touch the damp floor where Marcus's boots had left fresh prints. The man smiled faintly beneath the mask. "Always 2 steps ahead," he muttered, pulling a small detonator from his pocket and clicking it once. A red light blinked. The tunnel behind the Kings flared with sudden light, and the sound that followed wasn't thunder. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The explosion behind them wasn't a sound, it was a force, a living thing that roared through the storm tunnel like an angry god. The shockwave flung dirt and smoke down the shaft, the heat licking at their backs as Marcus shoved Lila and Malik forward. The tunnel shuddered, old concrete cracking like brittle bone. Malik stumbled, coughing through the dust. Marcus grabbed him by the arm, dragging him through the narrowing space. "Keep moving," he shouted, voice breaking against the thunder that followed. When they burst through the rusted exit grate near the creek, the night air hit them like a slap. Cold, sharp, alive with the scent of wet pine and gunpowder. Rain hammered down in relentless sheets, drowning out all other sound. Marcus pulled Lila close, scanning the dark tree line. No movement yet, but he knew Tolan was out there. The man didn't miss targets. He stalked them, studied them. He was probably watching right now, enjoying the chase. Lila's voice trembled as she shouted over the rain. "We can't just keep running." Marcus looked at her, soaked, terrified but unbroken, and something inside him cracked open. "I'm not running," he said. "I'm ending it tonight." Malik grabbed his sleeve, eyes wide. "Dad, please." Marcus knelt, gripping his son's shoulders, rain streaming down his face. "Listen to me, Malik, I should have finished this years ago. I thought I could bury the past, protect you from it. But it's like fire, it always finds air." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "You're going to take your mother and follow the creek to the road. There's a cabin 2 miles east, my emergency post. Wait for me there. You understand?" Lila shook her head fiercely. "Marcus, no," but he pressed a hand to her cheek, eyes full of quiet pleading. "If I don't go, he'll find us anyway. I trained him. I know what he thinks." The rain intensified, drumming against the metal of the SUV he'd hidden years ago under a camouflaged tarp. Marcus uncovered it, tossed his rifle inside, and looked back one last time at his family. "If you hear gunfire, you keep moving. Don't stop for me." Malik's voice broke. "You always come back." Marcus forced a thin smile. "Then I guess I have to, don't I?" He turned toward the woods, boots sinking into the mud. Every step pulling him deeper into the same nightmare he'd spent a decade trying to outrun. The darkness swallowed him whole. The forest was alive with the sound of dripping rain and distant thunder. Marcus moved silently, body low, senses stretched thin. Every rustle, every breath of wind carried the potential for death. Somewhere ahead, Tolan's voice broke through the static of the storm, amplified through a comm speaker, distorted and echoing. "You always were the best, King. Always a good soldier. You took orders. You stayed loyal, even when they burned us." Marcus stopped behind a fallen log, listening. "You think I came for revenge?" Tolan continued, voice low, calm, unnervingly sane. "No, I came for the truth. They erased us, Marcus, wiped us from the books. You lived because you followed their orders, and I died because I didn't." Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the forest for an instant, and there he was. Tolan, standing 20 yards away, rifle in hand, his face barely visible beneath the cracked visor. Rain streamed down his gear, dripping from the muzzle of his weapon. Marcus raised his own rifle but didn't fire. His voice carried through the storm. "You're wrong. I didn't follow orders. I disobeyed them, for you. I covered your trail. You would have been dead if I hadn't lied." Tolan stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly in the light. "You lied to save yourself. You think that's mercy?" He fired. The shot whistled past Marcus's ear, burying itself in the tree behind him. Marcus dropped, rolled, and returned fire, 2 controlled bursts. Tolan moved like smoke, vanishing between trees. The firefight turned into a deadly dance, gunfire muffled by rain, each man anticipating the other's rhythm. Marcus's pulse thundered. He crouched behind cover, breathing hard. "You could have gone to the press," he shouted. "You could have exposed them." Toland's voice came closer now, like a whisper crawling through the fog. "And what? Become a hero?" "They'd bury the story, same as they buried us." "No, Marcus, I'm done hiding their sins. Tonight the world remembers who we are." Suddenly Marcus's earpiece crackled, a voice faint but unmistakable. "Dad, come back." Malik, he disobeyed. Marcus's blood ran cold. He turned toward the sound, but before he could move, a flash erupted from the ridge. The bullet slammed into his shoulder, spinning him backward into the mud. Pain shot through him like lightning. He bit down a scream. "Still alive," Toland muttered, stepping out of the darkness, gun raised. Always were too stubborn to die. Marcus pressed a hand to his wound, forcing himself to stand. "You think killing me fixes this? The truth dies with both of us if you pull that trigger." Toland's eyes flickered. Just for a second, something human behind the mask. "That's the point." A gunshot split the air, but it didn't come from Marcus. It came from behind Toland. The ex-soldier stiffened, eyes widening. A single crimson bloom spread across his chest. He turned slightly, seeing who had fired. Daniels. The officer limped from the shadows, face bruised, arm wrapped in blood-stained gauze. "You forgot to check if I was dead," he said through gritted teeth. Toland staggered forward, clutching his wound, and Marcus lunged, wrestling him to the ground. The two men fought brutally in the mud. Fists, elbows, rage, and regret. Marcus pinned him down, breathing hard, rain washing the blood from both their faces. "You can stop this," Marcus rasped. "Don't make me finish what I started." Toland's voice cracked with pain and fury. "You already did." Then he smiled. Faint, haunting. Marcus froze as he noticed the small red light blinking on Toland's vest. A detonator. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Oh God." Toland's final words came out like a confession. "You can't erase ghosts." The world erupted in white, the light consumed everything, when white soundless, eternal. For a moment it felt like the world had stopped breathing. When Marcus opened his eyes, the rain was gone, replaced by a low hum of distant wind and the smell of scorched pine. He was lying on his back in a shallow crater, ears ringing, sky flickering with faint lightning over the blackened treetops. His body ached everywhere, ribs screaming, but he was alive. The explosion hadn't taken him, not completely. He rolled to his side, coughing through the smoke, searching. "Toland?" His voice came out ragged, barely a whisper. A few feet away, the man lay twisted among the wreckage, armor scorched, visor shattered. The detonator had only partially ignited, the wet ground muffling its full fury. Toland's chest rose shallowly, alive but fading fast. Marcus crawled toward him, dragging his injured arm. The mud squelched under his palms, and each movement felt like dragging years of guilt across broken glass. Toland's eyes fluttered open, dazed but aware. "Still breathing, huh?" he rasped. "Guess fate can't choose." Marcus knelt beside him. The rain began to fall again, gentle now, washing the ash from their faces. "Why?" Marcus asked quietly. "Why come after me? You had proof. You could have exposed them." Toland gave a faint, bitter laugh. "Expose who? The same machine that built us? You think the truth survives without blood?" He coughed, red streaking the mud. "They sent you to kill me because I had the files. I ran, disappeared. But I watched what happened to the others. Suicides, accidents, silence. You know how many of us they buried twice, Marcus? Once in dirt, once in paperwork." Marcus's throat tightened. "You think I didn't live with that? Every night I see their faces. Every order I followed was another scar I couldn't admit to." Toland turned his head, rain glinting off his eyes. "Then you should have joined me." "I tried to move on," Marcus said, voice breaking. "To build something worth saving, and a family, a life without orders." "You burned yours down." Toland smiled faintly, a shadow of his old self. "Guess we both found our own kind of war." His breathing faltered. "There's a flash drive. Inside my vest pocket." Marcus hesitated, then reached in, retrieving a small black drive smeared with dirt. "Everything's on there," Toland said weakly. "The mission, the cover-up, even the names who gave the kill order." His gaze locked on Marcus. "Use it. Don't hide it this time." Then his eyes dimmed. The last flicker of fire in him snuffed out by the rain. Marcus sat there for a long time, letting the storm wash over them both. One man dead, one still carrying the ghosts of the living. Finally, he closed Toland's eyes, whispering, "Rest easy, brother." By dawn, the forest was a graveyard of smoke and mist. Officer Daniels found him there, leaning against a tree, blood-soaked but steady. Daniels' uniform was torn, face bruised, but his eyes carried something new: respect, maybe even understanding. "Ambulance is on the way," he said. "Your family's safe. I got them to the cabin." Marcus nodded faintly. "He's gone." Daniels followed his gaze to the crater. "And what about that?" he asked, gesturing to the flash drive in Marcus's hand. Marcus stared at it for a moment, weighing its weight. Not just in metal, but in truth. "This could destroy men who built their lives on lies," he said. Daniels took a deep breath. "Maybe that's what needs to happen." Marcus studied him, seeing in the officer's face the transformation that began on that roadside. The arrogance stripped away, replaced by humility and conviction. "You were wrong about me," Marcus said quietly. "About my son. But you learned?" Daniels nodded slowly. "And I'll spend the rest of my life teaching others to see what I didn't." Weeks later, the story broke. A national investigation into covert military misconduct. Leaked files. Testimonies. The name Marcus King never appeared in print, but the truth he carried finally saw daylight. A Senate inquiry followed, then reforms. For the first time in years, Marcus slept without waking in the dark. At home, life began again in small, fragile pieces. Lila tended her garden. Malik returned to school, carrying a quiet pride when people spoke of heroes. Daniels became the face of a new community outreach program, helping bridge trust between the police and the people they served. Sometimes he'd stop by on weekends, sit with Marcus on the porch, and they'd talk without needing to fill the silence. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the pines, Malik stood beside his father, holding an old medal Marcus had once hidden away. "Were you scared that night?" Malik asked softly. Marcus looked at the boy, taller now, eyes older than his years. "Yes," he said, "but not dying. Of losing what mattered." Malik turned the medal in his hand, reading the faded inscription. "Mom says heroes don't need medals," Marcus smiled faintly. "She's right. Heroes just need someone to believe in what's right, even when no one's watching." They stood in silence for a while, the sound of wind through the pines replacing all the noise of memory. The past had left its marks, but it had also left meaning. Later that night, when the world was quiet again, Marcus opened the small wooden box he'd kept locked for years. Inside lay the flash drive, wiped clean. Next to it, a folded note in his own handwriting. Some truths must be told. Others must be carried, until they no longer hurt. He closed the box, slid it beneath the floorboard, and turned out the light. Outside, the first stars shimmered through the clearing sky. Somewhere far away, the faint echo of rotor blades whispered and was gone. Malik's laughter drifted from the other room, and Lila hummed softly in the kitchen. Marcus leaned back in his chair, eyes closing, breath steady. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like waiting. It felt like peace, and in that stillness came the final truth: that redemption doesn't always roar in triumph. Sometimes it comes quietly, disguised as forgiveness carried by the ones who survive.